Okay, let's talk about audio today. So last video I just bought this Yaesu FTDX 101D behind me here, and I was trying to run my Heil headset into this, and I almost got there with the audio, but it wasn't quite right, and I found the menu system for adjusting the audio on these Yaesus a little bit fiddly. I also wasn't overly happy with the adapter arrangement hanging down here. It was a bit big, bulky, got in the way, and wasn't particularly it was a little unsightly. So I've got so used to using this dynamic mic on a boom now, so using the headset seems like a nice idea, but I think I'd rather use this dynamic mic on the boom. So in order to connect that in and have a bit of control over my audio, I've been out and bought a EQ. Now this is a Metropwr FX Master. This is not cheap. It's about £300, which I think is actually overpriced. If you look on eBay, there is a Ukrainian amateur who makes these and sells them a bit cheaper, slightly less functionality. So I'll put some links in the description below, but basically it's an 8-band EQ. You've got a volume level adjustment. You can switch it between two separate radios, so you can run the same mic into two separate radios. You can only transmit on one radio at a time. Also got a compressor and a gate and a reverb on there if you really want it. So in order to connect that, all the connections on the back are 3.5mm jack, so you will need an adapter. If you're using the standard mic, by the way, you have got connections on the front for the standard 8-pin mic or the RJ45 mic, which comes with some Yaesus. But adapter for my mic, I needed XLR to 3.5mm jack, which it comes with instructions, which does show you how to wire this up. It shows you the pin out. I just bought this cable cheap off of eBay. I can't remember how much it was only a few quid. XLR on one end to go into the mic, and 3.5mm jack, stereo jack on the other end. And like I say, the instructions show you how to wire that up. You will also need to wire up your cable as appropriate for the radio. So it comes with an RJ45 cable, which if you've got something like an FTDX10 or 991A, the Yaesu radios, which have an RJ45 connector on the front, brilliant, you're set to go. In my case, the FTDX 101 has got a 8-pin connection, mic connection on the front. It comes with this connector, so the connector is supplied with it. You have to cut the end off your RJ45 and wire up the connection. Now it comes with instructions, and on the back here it's got, you probably won't see this on camera, it's got a few tables there which tells you how to wire it up for your specific radio. And the in the 8-pin connection, the pins are different for ICOM, Yaesu or Kenwood. There's the pins do different things, so you have to make sure you wire it up as per the instructions to suit your radio. And on the other side of the instructions, it also shows you the pin out for the XLR to 3.5mm jack. So that's what you get with it. There's no power cable with it, at least not on my one. I'm not sure if it got left out or if they just don't supply with a power cable. So I had to make up my own power cable, but given that I'm powering this off the radio anyway, not a big issue. So let's bring the camera in a bit closer, get close up, and let you see the front panel. So let's start off looking at the front panel. This is an 8-band graphic equalizer, so there are 8 frequencies across the top here, which you can either boost or attenuate by up to 6 dBs. Next row down, there's a volume control for the mic on the input, so this is pre-effect before it goes through any of your EQs, your compressors, your gates or your reverb. Speaking of the compressor, I have to say I really didn't like the sound of the compressor in this unit, so I leave that turned off. I prefer to use the processing built into the radio itself. A gate, which is handy for taking out background noise. Output A or B, so you can drive 2 separate radios with this unit. You can only drive one radio at a time, but you can select which radio you want the audio to go to. There is a reverb and a delay control, although I'm not quite sure why you'd want to add reverb to your radio communications. And finally, an output level, which adjusts your audio level going into your radio. Connectors on the front are the 8-way type used for Yaesu, ICOM and Kenwood, and there's also an RJ45 type used on some older Yaesus as well. So this is for if you want to use your factory hand mic that was included with the radio, although I suspect that most people will opt to use an aftermarket microphone which will be plugged into the connections on the back. Moving on to the back panel, and all of the audio connections are taken care of with 3.5mm jacks, so you may need an adapter cable for your microphone, especially if you want to use an XLR mic. Starting on the right here, we have a PTT connection. You will need to use this if you want to use the switch on the front to switch between two radios. I only ever drive one radio with this, so I connect my PTT foot switch directly into the radio, so for me that connection is redundant. Here you have a 12 volt or 13.8 volt power supply which you would connect to your shack power supply. I personally use a connection to my radio. My radio has a 13.8 volt output which turns on and off with the radio, so connecting this via that connection to the radio allows this unit to be turned on and off with the radio, which is very handy. Next we have a microphone connection. This is a 3.5mm stereo jack. This is where you would plug in your headset mic if you're using something like a Heil headset, or in my case if I want to use an XLR connection I will have to use a XLR to 3.5mm adapter for my XLR mic. Next connection is a headphone output socket, so you can take audio from your radio into this and plug your headphone direct into there. Another connection here for a condenser mic. If you want to use a condenser mic, it does say in the instructions though that you will need an external phantom power unit. So in my case that's redundant, I'm using the dynamic mic input here. And last of your audio connections, you have an audio in. So this is for your headset audio, which you would take from the headphone output of your radio and bring it into here for your headphones. Without that connected, your headphones will not work because they will not get any audio from the radio. The last two connections here are your outputs for your transmitted audio to the radio for radio 1 and radio 2. Okay, really quick practical on air demonstration. So what I've got set up here is at the moment this mic feeds both the camera and the radio for when I do live streams. I'm going to switch off the feed to the camera, so this mic is only going into the radio via the EQ unit, which is down here. The FTDX 101D here is set to 5 watts transmit, and it's going into a dummy load. So we're not going over the air as well. We are over the air, but not through an antenna, so it shouldn't interfere with anyone. And I've got an RSP1A SDR down here, which is connected into the computer, which is recording and taking the audio from that back into the computer. So that's the audio you're going to hear. So if I switch the mics over and put some headphones on so I can actually hear myself. So that is completely flat at the moment. You can adjust your settings so I can add some more bass to it if I want. That will probably sound a little bit muffled, or I can take the bass away. Needs a little bit of twiddling and tweaking. I can mess about with some of the higher frequencies as well, so that might sound a little bit more punchy. Like I say, that's to play with. I did say I wasn't too impressed with the compressor in this. I can bring the compressor up now. That's only about a third of the way up, and I'm just going to drop the gain on the mic down just a tiny bit, because that processor is, to me, it sounds like it's distorting slightly, and honestly I'm really not too impressed with that. So I think we'll turn that back off and bring my levels bring the microphone levels back up. I prefer to use the processor in the radio, so I'll just turn the processor on in the radio, and to me that sounds cleaner and better than the compressor built into the unit. So that's generally how I tend to run it. You've got the gate on there, which works absolutely fine, nothing wrong with that, and you've also got reverb if you really want it, and a delay as well, which I'm not quite sure why you'd want to use that, so I'll turn that off. But that's a quick practical on-air demonstration of the EQ going over the air through the FTDX 101D.
All the best, have a great week. QRZ Mike 0DCX. Golf Quebec Charlie. Oh, I couldn't miss that one. How are you finding the new radio?
Hey, Darren, absolutely fantastic, mate. You're rocking in as always. Good 5.9, in fact, possibly a bit more than that. I've got some attenuation on, so probably 10 over 9, Darren. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. You certainly are, James. I have to say, definitely 10 over 9. Just running the IPO, no attenuation, but just on IPO, definitely 10 over, James. Well, you sound great. I don't know how you... I see something about you a bit worried about the parametrics and that, but you're sounding okay this end, over.
Yeah, well, I actually abandoned using the parametrics in the radio in the end. I've got a separate EQ at the moment, so I've got a dynamic mic going into a separate EQ and then into the radio, and doing a bit of a video on it at the moment. So I've actually got your live stream recording on a separate laptop, so if you don't mind me pinching the video from your live stream, it would be appreciated, Darren. Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely do that. You know, that's certainly why it's up there. So, you know, a lot.
Right, so I've had this EQ now for just over a week. I've had a couple of on-air sessions with it and done a bit of messing about, and I think I'm ready to come to some conclusions. So, in terms of leveling up your mic, adjusting the EQ, adjusting the gain on the mic, a hell of a lot easier than doing it through the radio. And I normally just stick it on this spare shelf down here, so when I'm on my computer on the radio, I just reach down there and adjust it as needed. So really like that. Gate feature works absolutely fine. I don't use the reverb on it. I can't see the point, to be honest. And the compressor, as I said earlier in the video, I can't stand it, to be honest. I don't like the compression on it, so I use the processor built into the radio. I'll stand by what I said previously. I think £300 or just under £300 is a bit much, so I think it's really overpriced. For a cheaper option, there's, as I mentioned, the guy in Ukraine who manufactures and sells them. I said he sells them on eBay. At the time of filming, I don't actually see any on eBay, but he does sell them direct through his site. I will put a link below. Never got my hands on one, never tried one, but it's basically going to do the same thing. The reason I went for the more expensive one, better connectability, better different connections on it. So that was the reason I went for the more expensive one. But if you want the Ukrainian version, which is about half the price of this one, there's several models you can get. It depends which model you go for in terms of price. He does ship worldwide, and his call sign is Uniform Romeo 6 Quebec Whiskey, and I will put a link to his website down below. But from my perspective, external EQ for the mic, it was a win for me.